Tape Deck Media.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Art of Bombing podcast. I am your host, Dan Bublitz Jr., and with me, as always, is my co-host, co-producer, and cohort, Mr. Josh Shirley, coming in from Kansas City. How's it going?
I'm in Kansas City now, but over the past week, I was in Texas for the Thanksgiving holiday. Maybe you've heard of it. And what I realized is that as a nation, we tolerate turkey. I think,
yeah.
Don't you think? Like I like you can make turkey really great, but I think at any point people would rather be having steak. Or
I think so too. I think our capitalistic country has forced us into eating turkey when we could be eating something more delicious.
Is it capitalism?
I don't know. I'm just like because honestly, I like to stir things. I like to stir the pot on a holiday. On a holiday, I would rather cook a steak than, like for Christmas dinner, I'm probably not doing ham. I'm probably doing steaks.
Steak, right.
A good
Now,
old steak
my
and
wife's cousin,
dinner.
we go to my wife's cousins on Christmas, and they do a ham like I've never had. But I literally have never
good or
had.
bad?
It's amazing.
Oh, okay. You're like, I'm not going to out myself.
But it's, and when I say never had it, I mean like all other times that I've had ham, I'm like, why ham? But not there. It is spectacular. But because it's Christmas, it's a potluck deal, and people are bringing other stuff, ribs, and things. So it's like I like a nice turkey meal. I don't dislike turkey. I like the Thanksgiving meal as it is, and I'll continue to do it. But if they passed a law that was like, and now it's waffles and steaks, I'd be like, I'm just gonna have to kind of get on board with the waffles and the steaks. Or fried chicken.
It was chicken and waffles.
Yep, had them. Would be a fine substitute for things. Like, what would you? Is it steak? Is that what you would ideally have?
I mean, if I was gonna get fancy, or ribs, I think ribs is good, or like a pulled pork. Like I'm more of a, when it comes to because honestly, I don't eat a lot. I'm not a big meat eater. I like meat. I'm not like,
you can't have that beer like that. Not be a
right.
You're surprising a lot of people with that, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I surprise my fiance all the time with this because she's a big steak prime rib person, and I'm just not. My favorite kind of meat is just a burger. I like a good old fashioned burger. But if I'm gonna eat something fancy, I would like on a fancy dinner, like to celebrate like a holiday. If I'm not going turkey, I would go either a good old steak of some sort or ribs. I think would be the way to go. I love me some ribs.
There you go. Yeah, I smoke a mean rib. So
yeah, I can go. I can eat ribs all day long. I'm more of a barbecue guy. That's the thing. Like that's it. That I like the smoked meats. That's the route I'm going. Good old steak, barbecue. Good old juicy burger off the grill.
Yeah,
off the grill. That's what I'm talking about.
Nice, man.
I'm firing up the grill. That's what I'm doing for the holidays.
Like you.
Yeah, but we're not here to talk about the holidays. Although I hope you had a good holiday. I had a good holiday.
Indeed.
Good.
Indeed.
I want to throw this out here before we forget. I hope you listened to last week's callback. We were calling back episode 293. And if you did, I hope you stayed till the end. If you didn't stay till the end, you might want to go back and listen to the end after the outro. There's a nice little bonus, bonus soundbite on last week's callbacks episode.
You're all going to be asking if Fire Josh is still a thing once you hear it. Just not to ruin it.
You can still go to buymeacoffee.com/artofbombingpod and fire Josh.
That's right.
That's still an option. And you might, after you go listen to that bumper, that little extra bonus soundbite we put in last week's episode. It's pretty funny.
Hilarious.
And then we'll be talking a lot more about this too on next week's episode of Callbacks, but we will be taking a holiday break as we do every year. We'll be back in January with season 8 of the Art of Bombing podcast. And you probably heard the new bumpers at the beginning. That's right. We're part of Tape Deck Media, which is my podcast network and comedy label. And I talk more about that on the Callbacks episode as well. So we don't want to keep you guys hanging around too long on this podcast or the intro, because we have a whole other podcast next week where it's just Josh and I talking about stuff. And what we're talking about is some great talking points that came up in this conversation, episode 294 with Christopher Keith Tyler. We had some fantastic topics.
Yep. I thought the episode was just loaded with stuff just from the beginning on just different ways to look at things that we haven't really talked about on the show before. Just the degrees of bombing, and a lot about, pros and cons about publishing your material and stuff.
I like the degrees. I wish I'm bummed that a little behind breaking the fourth wall and behind the scenes, Josh and I usually record callbacks before we do these intros. I'm letting you in on this secret, because when you said the different degrees, I wish we would have used that instead of layers, because degrees and burns and bombing, it all goes.
Oh, it does. Yeah. Magnitude. A caliber. Yeah.
Caliber. So next week, when you listen to the callbacks episode, when we referred to layers, just pretend we said degrees, like temperature, like burns and all that. Then it'll all go together.
But it'll ultimately make you feel better about your own bombs.
And absolutely.
Just because he puts it into perspective, the vast majority of the bombs that I consider to be bombs, he would classify as kind of the lowest tier.
It's a good way to evaluate, the severity of a bomb.
Right.
And so, it really breaks it down. So, that's what's coming up on this conversation. Make sure, I'm going to be, when you listen to this, I will be in Bristol, Tennessee, or on my way to Bristol, Tennessee, actually. I will be, I'm going to do some tour dates real quick, and then we'll get into the show, because I am going on tour a little bit. When this comes out this week, you can catch me on Friday, December 8th. I will be on a Don't Tell show in Kansas City. I can't tell you where the show is or who else is on it. I can just tell you that, you want to go buy tickets, you can go to don'ttellcomedy.com probably for those tickets. Saturday, I will be in St. Louis. Sunday, I'll be just basically Nashville. And then from December 11th through the 16th, I will be in Bristol, Tennessee at the Blue Ridge Comedy Festival. So if you're in any of those areas, love to have you come to the show. You can find out all the rest of the information, buy tickets, all that jazz on my website as well, danbublitz.com. And do you have anything to plug, or should we get into this episode?
Let's get into the episode.
All right, here is our conversation with Christopher Keith Tyler. Enjoy.
And now it's time for the stand-up soundbite.
Temecula for over 21 years now. Thank you. Such an accomplishment. Look how I turned out. I don't look crazy at all. Temecula didn't do anything to me. I've seen it change over the years. One of my favorite changes was when we opened up Hooters in town. Hooters on Jefferson. I don't know if you remember, but it was a big deal. Yeah, the hot wings, right, Phil? Yeah, dude, the hot wings, that's where it's at. It was open for a moment, and Temecula was like, we're not having that. This is a conservative town. Shut it down. They shut it down immediately. And then they opened up Tilted Kilt. No one said shit. It's totally fine. Different. Different. It's by the mall. Over there. Not on Jefferson, that's a president. But then Hooters, guess what it turned into? Plastic surgery center. Isn't that weird? It's so weird, isn't it? Just imagine all the Hooters girls walking out and then they just turn right back in and then they just blow out. Got those BBLs everywhere. BBLs everywhere. Lips, everything. I love it. I like that. Be free. Be an American. Be yourself.
The art of bombing.
Man, it's been a long time since you and I have even seen each other's faces, let alone talked. It has been a hot minute. Let's before we really get into this podcast and start talking the comedy stuff, let's catch up a little bit because I would say the last time I saw you, I honestly don't remember because it's been that long. Because I haven't been in San Diego for almost 10 or going on like 8 years now, something like that.
Yeah.
But you've gotten married since, I think, and all kinds of big life changes.
Twice. Yeah, twice now.
Oh, you've been married twice since?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. I got married. I proposed during the solar eclipse in 2017, and we got married during the lunar eclipse in 2019.
Oh wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're very doing it good this time. It's going great.
Good. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. As somebody, I don't have any room to talk when it comes to relationships, so no judgment on my end.
Yeah,
that's like one of them things. I had a faux wedding, so.
You had a faux wedding, like the soup.
Yeah, no, like faux.
Oh, that's pho.
Yeah, that's pho. You're thinking pho. I said pho, which is the FAUX.
That's right. Yeah, just like you just have mannequins and
well, not
dolls
quite
everywhere.
Thing, but no, it was weird because we had a wedding and then she decided she didn't want to be married like 3 days later, and there was a whole I wrote a whole show about it. That's how bad.
Wow.
How bad it got. Yeah. It was wild. And I think at that time, I don't know if you were still in doing comedy because you've kind of come back and forth, right? Like you went in and out over the years, or have you been doing it pretty consistently?
Consistently, yeah.
You have been? Okay.
Yeah, I just was there was a period with my son where he needed more time focus, so I was just doing local shows in Temecula and Murrieta.
Maybe that's what it
was.
But
yeah. In the beginning, I was going real hard into, San Diego, LA. And then there was a period where I just focused closer to home. And then now I'm back out again.
Oh, that's great.
Now that my son's in high school now, so I can cut loose.
You can just let it all out.
Yeah.
That's great. And I always think like Murrieta, Temecula, I think that is like one of the most perfect places to live for comedy. That's not in a comedy city because you're like an hour from LA, hour-ish from LA, right? And like an hour-ish from San Diego. Like it's a good in between to two great comedy scenes. And you're not Orange County is not that far. Like it's a good centralized.
Palm Springs.
Yep. Yeah, that's great.
No, everything. We're right in the middle. The 15 and the 215. It's like a wishbone. The point. That's where we live. And then below is San Diego, San Marcos, Escondido, San Diego County, all the way down. And then you take the split, and you can go to like Riverside, Palm Springs, LA, Orange County. Like, there's a lot of choices.
No, absolutely. And I know there's a lot of comics that are now residing in Temecula, Murrieta area too. Like that, I know several comics that live in that area. Even some bigger comics. Yeah, absolutely. I was, my current partner and I, she ever asked me if I'd ever want to move back to California. She's not a big fan of California, but she sometimes we have these talks. It's like, would you ever want to move back? I was like, I'd love to, but it's so expensive. It would be great. And then I was looking at property once just to see what it was like in San Diego compared to like Temecula, Murrieta. And I was like, well, if we ever decided to go back, we're gonna live here because the housing, it's still expensive, but it's not nearly as expensive it is in those other areas, and it's a good central location to all that stuff.
Yeah, I just read yesterday that San Diego is now the top most expensive place to live in the United States, which is I can't believe. I actually have a hard
Wow.
time believing that with New York City, L.A., San Francisco. But that's what the report was
But
saying.
that's
I think it was
probably because more people want to be in that nice weather. I
yeah,
mean, it was
yeah,
expensive when I lived there, and that was, like I said, going on like 7, 8 years ago when it wasn't as expensive as it probably is now. But it was still, all I did was work. I did comedy, and then I worked multiple
yeah,
jobs to pay rent.
right, yeah, hustling,
It's funny.
yeah,
I ran into somebody who, I don't know if they had just visited San Diego or if they had lived there for a little bit or whatever. I think they were out there for work or something, and they were talking about how expensive it is. And I was like, yeah, it really is. I would love to live out there, and I did live out there. And I was like, they're like, yeah, there's so many cool things to do. And I was like, not when you're poor.
right, yeah,
Now, I was like, my life just consisted of shows and working because I
right,
had to take every cent I made and put it towards bills. So I didn't do a lot of fun stuff while I was there
right.
if it wasn't free.
You were a good servant
Yeah,
to the
pretty
society.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah, not by choice.
right. Yeah,
Although
that's
I was gonna say,
good.
if I was gonna be homeless, that's a good place to be homeless.
Right. Yeah, I think
The
the
weather is
ideal,
pretty good.
if you don't have a kid, the ideal thing is to live in your car, outside of a 24-hour fitness, and then
Yeah.
just like, go to the bathroom and shower, and then eat in your car, and then do shows and
Yeah,
work, of course,
perfect.
and save up
Yeah.
your money.
Yeah, I actually knew a comic who did that for a little while.
I do too.
Yeah. I wonder
Yeah,
I wonder if it's the same comic.
yeah. I'm like, oh, if it wasn't for my son, like
Pesky
yeah,
kids.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's great. Well, and I see just from, people on Facebook too, mutuals and all that. I see a lot of I see that comedy's still going pretty strong in the Temecula Marietta area. For people
Yeah.
listening, people listening probably don't even know where Temecula or Marietta are, but like I said, it's a great little hub, and there's a lot of you guys pretty much have your own little comedy scene as well. There's always been pretty good independent shows there. Off
hmm
and on through the years, there have been clubs between the
hmm
casino that's in Temecula gets some pretty good
hmm
shows. Used to have a club. Do they still have the comedy club at Pachenga or
Actually,
Pachanga or however they say it?
they just announced this week that Pachanga's comedy club that's now above the Kelsey's restaurant,
Mhm.
it reopened.
Oh, so just reopened.
It just reopened. So yeah,
Wow.
we're all very excited to get back in there.
Awesome. I
Yeah.
did it a few years ago. I was out there and did that club, and it was a lot different than when it was both in the basement.
hmm
I don't know, like having it up there, it was pretty wild, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was wild.
I'm more into the basement scene. Like I like the low ceiling and the going down into the pit. It's just more
Yeah,
like intimate when it's,
absolutely,
just
and that basement club was gorgeous
yeah.
down
It
there with
was
all the
original.
brick and
Yeah. It was originally an improv comedy club, and then Pachanga Food and Beverage bought it out and turned it into Pachanga Comedy Club. But yeah,
Okay, yeah, so
most
it was
improvs are
already
really
a
nice.
comedy club. Well, yeah, I was gonna say that explains why it was so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and now I'm curious. So, if it was an improv and then Pachanga about it, what's in it now? Do you know? What did they do with that space? Because they moved the club
Oh,
up to the loft. So, what are they even doing with it now?
I don't go to the casino other than
Yeah. Well, yeah,
like
that's
yeah,
fine. I figured.
I'm not a casino type, but I
Yeah, me either.
forget. I think that I forget if they turned it into a bingo hall or
Oh
something
God,
casino
of
related,
course.
but something really sad if you're not into.
Yeah. If you tell me what the real answer is, I'm just gonna be sad about it.
Yeah, Yeah, it's like an indoor parking lot now, like
Yeah,
for
that checks
strollers.
out.
I don't know. Yeah,
That's based on the history of casinos. That checks out.
yeah,
Well, I tell you, when I did that club, it was wild because when you're an out of town comic, they put you up at the resort, or at least they did. I don't know if they still do, but they put you up at the resort. They even gave you like a stipend for food, like you had a meal card that was good at the
Mhm.
restaurants within the facility or whatever. And you pretty much didn't even have to leave. It was so weird. Like you're just there living on this resort and you don't even have to leave. But it's just
yeah,
weird because once you're inside a casino, even if you're not a casino person, like time just ceases to exist. Like there's no
right.
concept. Like it just runs 24 hours a day. So it's like a
Yeah.
wild experience.
No, and it's a good way to pick up new material for for crowd work and because it's something's always happening inside the casino.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and then out by the pool, you could go out there, or there's a golf resort that's there, and like if you just participate in everything,
Yep. That's one
some of
thing.
those people they're going to be in the audience. Some of those people that saw you walking around taking notes.
Mhm. Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah, I definitely I took part of the pool area. That was a really nice area. So it is a really nice resort, I will say that. But
yeah.
again, I'm
There
not a
was
casino person either.
a little throwback. Fox used to record laughs on
Yep.
Fox at Pachanga at
Yeah.
that casino. And when there was a period when I was working there at the spa, and as I do massage therapy for the last 20 years, that's my day job. But
I bet your wife
they,
likes that.
yeah, she does. Yeah. Yeah, it keeps me out of trouble. Like, I can do whatever I want now. Like as long as yeah, but yeah, while I was working there, Taylor Tomlinson was the host for the show at
Yep.
the time, and they came in and did a spot at the spa, and so there's one of the episodes I'm massaging Taylor Tomlinson on
Oh,
Fox. So
that's funny
yeah,
that you got a credit for being on
yeah,
Fox's Laughs, but you're the only
yeah,
comedian that's got that credit without having one of your comedy clips.
right,
Like,
right, yeah,
like you have
yeah.
the credit, but not for the reason you want.
Right, right, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I actually I did an episode, like I filmed my set there for Laughs. They never aired
Laughs.
it, but yeah, I did one of the tapings
That's
at
cool.
Laughs. Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. And when I did it, Michael Malone was the one hosting that particular night. But yeah, it was a good time. That was a fun little show because I taped same night with Zoltan was on there, and we rode up together, and then my engine blew in my car on the way back home. So we had an incredible
Damn.
story.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a fun road story. For sure.
Nice.
Yeah, because the engine blew, and then I didn't have AAA, so Zoltan he gave me so much shit about it too, or he crap about it. He was like, "You don't have AAA? Why would you travel without AAA?" And like,
One time
so then
I was go on. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, so then he had to call his AAA, and we had my car towed to San Marcos to the auto shop that he used to work at when he was, still coming up, and yeah, but it was quite the experience.
That's cool.
Definitely
A long
memorable.
time. At one point years ago, I was hosting I put on a show at Starbucks Hookah Lounge in Temecula, and Chip Nicholson and Russell Hicks were coming up to headline and feature in a hookah lounge. And on the way up from San Diego, they had a tire blowout with their Prius, and they fixed it, and they still made it to the show. Like I had to hold it over for an extra, like 15 minutes, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was still a great time. But it's cool when, comics, like the show must go on. Like we have to get there, and we have to make it
absolutely.
happen.
That
And it makes for good material.
It does. Yeah, that actually happened to me. My last vehicle, my transmission went out when I was on my way to a show, And I still, luckily the show was a later show, but I was going all the way down to Illinois, and I was maybe 3/4 of the way there. So I was, pretty close. And luckily, my friend who I was going to be staying with too, like he was featuring. And from where I broke down, he only lived like an hour. And then the venue
Mhm.
was like 2 hours from his house, I think, something like that, but in a different direction. And so I had my car towed to a shop. He came and picked me up, and then we drove straight to the show. So we were still able to do the show.
Cool. That's
Yep.
awesome.
Yep. Show must go on.
That's
Even if
right.
you have to leave your car at
Yeah.
some garage
Yeah.
not open in some small town.
Yeah. Roll in on a gurney with an IV and a bedpan. You're still gonna do it.
Exactly. I lost a lot of money on that show, but because I ended up having to scrap my car, rent a car to get home.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, or there's times where like, yeah, you get your car towed and it's like $500 to get your car back because you parked in the wrong spot
Oh,
because you were
yeah.
running late for a show in San Diego or something. Or
You take that chance. You're like, oh, they're not gonna tow it. This is fine.
right.
And you
Yeah.
come back and well, nope, wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. It's either your car got stolen or the cops took it. One of
I
the
mean,
somebody
technically,
stole it.
it got stolen. Yeah, I was gonna say one way or another, it got stolen. One just is more legal than the other.
Either way, it's your fault.
And either way, bad experience.
Yeah.
For you anyway.
Hmm.
That's great. So are you going down to San Diego quite a bit now and getting out? You said you're hitting comedy pretty hard now that your son's in high school or
Yeah.
your kid's in high school.
Yeah. He's in high school. He's a freshman now. Right now, I've been focusing a lot on producing. So
Okay.
I put on like right now. This is my KAWmedy Entertainment. We had at Solaris Beer and Blending. There's a brewery in town. Really good beer, but I'm honored and thankful that we get along so well. Like the staff and my wife and I, they're just good people. They have like an Adult Swim kind of way of thinking, and that's perfect for thinking off the cuff. And so every Monday I put on an open mic there, but I do 4 different themes. The first theme is green screen comedy night, where I'll wear a full green morph suit and a green background. It's very difficult to host, and
I'm sure when you're invisible.
yeah, I can't. Yeah, and then up on the screen, the projector, we change the background for the performers, and to get people to come out on a Monday night, we got to change it up a little bit. But I always do, fresh off the press material, so it's always a stressful environment for me. Then the next week we'll do goth comedy night. So like all the lights in the brewery are smart bulbs, so we can change the color for each theme. So the first night's all green, the second night's all red. We have
That's fun.
I wear horns, and we have a black backdrop, and my wife does the DJ, and she plays like a lot of goth music, and we keep it like gothy feel, but everyone still does their standard, material. And then the next week is Hecklers Wanted. So we encourage the audience to engage with the comedians. Just make sure you make it count. Don't just make noise to be disruptive. And then lastly is Strangely Normal open mic. It's just just normal.
Yeah, just normal,
but,
just a regular. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
And
then,
do you get a pretty good turnout then for?
Oh yeah.
With that.
It took over the last year, it's increased to now it's like packed every Monday. So I'm very thankful.
That's awesome.
And it's a fun show. And then once a year, we do the annual Comedy Fest. It's KAWmedy. Where'd it go?
Nice.
There you go. Yeah, and so we put on a comedy festival there at Solaris, and it's from 3 p.m. to 9:30, 10 o'clock, and we showcase headliners, and have School of Rock comes in and opens the show. And last year we sold out, and this year it's going to be bigger and better. And yeah,
Well,
we're
that's awesome.
excited for that.
Congratulations. I'm glad to
Thank
hear
you.
that that's all going so well for you. But
Yeah.
we're going to transition to what doesn't go so well for you
Oh
sometimes.
yeah.
And obviously, when you're on stage and performing, it doesn't always go the way we want. Hence the premise of this podcast. So I would love for you to tell your bombing story.
Oh yeah. So you were saying earlier about Pachenga. That was where I bombed the hardest.
I've definitely
was-
bombed pretty hard there too. So
Dude. Yeah, I was a year in to comedy, and I was doing all the bar gigs, and Kevin Millard saw me do a very good set at a show at the Edge Lounge in Old Town, I think it was, or it was Ontario Improv. I'm not sure which one, but he was like, "Hey, would you like to be the opener for a whole week? 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday at the Pachenga Comedy Club. Headliner Eric Schwartz will be doing the show." And I was like, "Yeah, I've never done anything like that before, so for sure, yeah, that's great." Paid, everyone's paying $20 to get in, and they're getting their drinks. So there's like a high level of like,
Eric Schwartz is a fun comic to work with too.
Yeah,
He's a very high energy and very fun.
and beatboxing and rapping and like
music
he's wonderful.
He's putting on a show.
Yeah. I learned a lot from him, but I go and back then I had I had like a double callback joke that I would close with, and it was sold out Friday, 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday, and each show I was like, the audience wasn't digging me. I was too dirty, and it's like a Casino Temecula Murrieta crowd that they was more conservative, and they just weren't. I was too rough around the edges for them and so I was like, oh man, it wasn't hitting tonight. I'm so like I'm disappointed, and I'm like, well, maybe the last late show on Saturday, they'll be loosened up. They'll be more open to like dirty comedy. And so I go up there. It's like what 200-300 seats packed, and it's the whole set. There is just dead silence, and then I botched my closer double callback joke. I did it backwards, and like it doesn't make any sense. And like and they can clearly see I'm stressing out, and I'm like, well, that's my time. My name's Christopher. Thanks for having me. And I go to walk off. They play the music, and it's dead silent. And then this one lady stands up, and she's like, "That guy effing sucks." And everyone's yeah, yeah. And I just like went in the green room, and it was just soul crushed. 4 shows back to back, bombed each one, but the last one was the worst bomb of all. For an old lady to just be like, effing, like an old lady said the F word, and everyone cheered for her. Just absolutely soul crushing. So then I was like, I gotta write like something like a popsicle stick set, something real clean.
Yeah.
So I went back like a week later to the open mic at that club, and I went up with a shaky paper, and I just did like these one-liners that I wrote, and they were like, "These are great, yeah." Like it's like, okay, so now I need to like refine and like meet in the middle. So or for based on the region that you're in, because Murrieta and Temecula, especially Murrieta, is very like right-leaning. There's a church on every corner. They want you to believe they're super conservative. So like the beginning of the show, it takes a lot of foreplay to like get them in. Usually but by the time if you're a feature and a headliner, it's not so bad. But like opening any show in this area is challenging. But
I would
that was
say
my worst bomb.
Even sometimes as a feature, it's not that easy in that area. Because like I said, when the last time I did Pachenga, I was a feature, and every show was to me was terrible. I don't think I had a good show. Like it was bad. Like the headliner was this older guy. I don't even remember his name, but like he was like most of his stuff was just like hacky road material, like pretty low hanging type of fruit stuff, but he did fine. He was doing fine with it or whatever. But like every show, it felt like it was getting worse and worse. And then on top of that, I had to perform on Easter Sunday. Like there was an Easter Sunday show, and there was hardly anybody there. And that was one of the shows. Some of my friends from San Diego came up to watch the show. That was probably my best show of the weekend, only because they sat up front and they were laughing at everything. But yeah, I was just like, whew. So now I kind of have like, there's this thing in the back of my mind where I'm like, now you said that they're opening the club back up. I'm like, I got to find out who books it because I want to come back for redemption.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I can't leave it as that. The last time I performed there, it was that bad. I have to go back and prove myself.
Yeah. It's sort of like in a video game when like you barely scrape by a level and then you want to come back and get a 3-star on whatever level. You want to like collect all the pieces. So
that's exactly it. You want to just, you're like, oh, I could have did better. Let's go back and through this level again. And that's exactly how I feel about Pachenga.
Yeah. It's like, a gamble.
I need to come back. I mean, I can very easily come back and do worse or as bad as I did last time.
Yeah.
All those things are possible.
It's true.
However, I do feel like if I went back now, and having the experience that I did, because when I was there, that club was fairly new. I think they had just moved it upstairs recently. They were still playing around with where they wanted the speakers and the sound, and so there were some sound issues. And then on top of that, they have that restaurant club below it, and you could hear the mute. They had like a DJ thing on on the weekend, and you could hear the music coming through. Like it wasn't very soundproof. So there was some, other elements that probably contributed to it. But I think now where I'm at in comedy, I could go back there and do very well because I've come a long way since the last time I was there. Because I think when I was there last, it was way before the pandemic. This was like probably 2018, maybe 2019. So it's been some years since I've been back, at least at Pachenga. I've been back to San Diego and Southern California since, but
well,
it's been a while since there.
If you're ever swinging through here, hit me up. I also produce, book, and host Shamrock Irish Pub and Eatery on Tuesdays, so I can get you a spot there as well.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's paid.
Yeah.
So I can,
and that's, I'm always looking for that because that's what I do. And I am coming back to San Diego in December, but I'm pretty much booked already. But I usually, what I'll do is I try to every couple of years, take like a week or two and just come out to San Diego and do a bunch of shows, because then I also get to hang out with a bunch of friends that I haven't seen in forever. So, and that's always nice. And then I can turn it into like a little workation where you do a bunch of sets, get to make a little bit of money, hang out with friends. It works out great. So
yeah. Right now I'm booking. I've booked out until January. So if you want to come out after January, just give me a heads up, and
for sure,
I'll make it work. Yeah, I'll get you in.
I appreciate that because definitely knowing that I will definitely, because I do when I come out there, I try to plan for whatever it is. This particular trip that I'm coming out for it was kind of a last minute plan. I'm coming out because somebody's doing a big show out there that I want to go hang out with and just go see their show or whatever. And then I was like, well, I'm in the area. If I'm going to be here for the weekend, I should try to get some shows. And so I'm actually going to be hosting at the Comedy Club in Escondido. So sweet. I was like, oh yeah, I get some spots, and I haven't got to perform at that club yet because they opened that up after I moved, and then the last couple times that I came through, it just didn't work out to where I could get there and do a spot or anything like that. So I'm excited to go.
It's great. They have the indoor and outdoor stages, so you have two options. It's wonderful. I love that. I love that room.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I've heard it's great, and they seem to be doing really well. Adam seems to
Hmm.
really be doing good with it and getting really good headliners. And I mean, even some of the people he has coming through featuring, I'm like, they could headline. Like
Hmm.
you're basically just getting headliners at these shows. It's insane.
Yeah.
But of course,
Yeah.
regular people don't know what they're really getting. They're just like, give me jokes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating with the audience when there's some audiences where they're like, I just want jokes, like don't talk to me, I just want
Yeah.
jokes. And then there's others where they're like, I don't know, I really would like to talk to somebody. So
Yeah.
like, so you have
Yeah.
to sort of weave and figure it out, and then you'll be starting your set and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna toss my set because this audience wants somebody to listen to them, like, or they
Yeah,
want
that's pretty much
engagement.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel
So.
like that's one of the worst parts of all the comics that are posting crowd work now is that
Hmm.
that you're getting that where it's either one side or the other. One side is people don't want to be involved in the show, so now they're afraid to sit up front. And then
Hmm.
people on the other side of that, people are coming because they want to be part of the show. So they want to
Right.
come and heckle so that they can be part of the show and be
Right.
talked to and everything. So they can be one of them
Yeah.
clips.
It's definitely a double-edged sword. I also, these clips that are going out, like, I understand from marketing standpoint that you don't want to show your normal set because then
Yep.
nobody will have the surprise if they know what the punchline. So they only show the crowd work because the crowd work happens one time and it'll
Hmm.
never happen again unless it's planned or you have a plant or something.
Yeah.
But
Well, I think though that I think comics are getting a little carried away with the whole I can't showcase any of my material, and then do it at a show because it isn't like once you put it out there, it's burned. I know plenty of comics that
mhm,
are putting out clips from shows that aren't crowd work, and people are
mhm.
still coming. If anything, it's getting more and more people to want to come see them. I feel like
Right. I think it should be. We need to see more of both, like
both. Yes.
especially that, yeah, because we're seeing more crowd work, and it's causing audience members to think like, oh, comedy is where they talk to you
Hmm.
these days. So, and then because the shows that I've been at over the last couple of years, a lot more people are like, I want to talk to you. Like, don't, as soon as you start going into your set, they're like, oh, he's a robot. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
turn off, and then you're like, oh, come on, dude. Like, so it's an interesting thing where you want to weave and like, but on the internet, we need to post more of our standard or best ofs or whatever, just,
Yep, I
yeah,
agree. It's gotta be
yeah,
you gotta have a good variety out there, I think, but I
yeah,
think people are disregarding putting out their regular material with, "Oh, I can't if I show it, then I can't do it at a live show," which I don't think that's true. Yeah, like I
no,
said, you can definitely because it's not like you're putting out a whole hour at a time, you know what I mean? It's not like you're recording the whole show and then putting that whole hour up every time you perform. That'd be different if you were if you're a comic doing something like that, then yeah, of course, people are not going to want to come see you live if you're giving all your material away. But if you just
right,
put, some highlights, and that's a lot of times what I do with a lot of the clips that I put out, I recycle jokes. So, like, they're jokes that I've already put out there, but it might be a different video at a different club with a different crowd reaction. But I'm not
hmm,
worried about, that material because I've already put it out there several times, but I'm still
yeah,
got that content that I can feed the machine, the algo machine,
yeah.
because that's
uh,
really what a lot of comedy is now is getting stuff to feed the algo machine.
I have to say, I made a funny, interesting thing happen because of online. I posted a clip of me to promote the green screen show. There's a clip of me performing in the morph suit, and then a clip of me doing a sketch in the morph suit. And even though it's marked as like, the show's adult comedy or adult content, children have been coming to my show.
Oh no, they think you're a
Because-
children's character.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I like, because I do this like transformation thing where I'm like, I'm a green screen morph suit, activate, and they're like, he's a superhero. Like, I want to go. And so like before the show a few weeks ago, I was in my morph suit, and I go up every 15 minutes leading up to the hour of the show, and I'm like, show starts in 45 minutes, adult content, and there's like a grip of children in the audience, like, yay. Like, and I'm like, no, adult content is happening. It's an open mic. Like, you don't want to be here. They're like, I like the green screen. You're like, no, you're not listening. Parents, get your kid out of here.
This is a bar for crying out loud.
Yeah. And then the first comic goes up and just starts saying the most crazy stuff, and the children are just like picked up and they run out. I'm like, all right, well, they're gone now. There goes half the audience.
Yeah, and I look forward to reading those complaints online. Even though I warned them like 5 times.
Yeah, there's even a chalkboard sign outside that says adult content tonight between these hours, and parents still bring their kids. They read it, they hear me doing it, and they're still like, it's gonna be fine, like it's nothing could happen. What could they say?
Right. That's funny because I listened to Mark Maron's podcast, and in the last couple episodes he was talking about this very thing, because he did a show in Washington, and he was, I don't know if he was doing like a sound check or what, but he was in the area of the venue for something, and he ran into this family on the street, and they mentioned that they were all coming and they're bringing their kids, and like he kind of freaked out about it because it made him all self-conscious. He's like, do I have to like be family friendly now? Like, and so he's been talking a little bit about it on his podcast, about that, about parents bringing their kids to comedy shows. And then of course people emailed him, and so then he talked a little more about it, about, you know, the idea of you know, if parents are, you know, talking to their children and they're okay with the words or whatever, you know, still not necessarily great for comedy, but it is real interesting.
It makes it harder too. Oh, sorry.
It can. Well, I was just saying, yeah, you're right. It definitely can make it harder. For me, it's funny. For me, it's not that hard. Like, I'm pretty clean anyway. And so I always go in with the mindset of, okay, there's children here, but I'm not trying to entertain them. I'm trying to entertain the people around them, and I'm going to do my jokes. Some of it they might get, because I do some cheesy dad jokes sometimes, but most of my material they're probably not going to get anyway. You know, it's just going to fly over their head.
Yeah, two things. One, I prefer doing the open mic shows or the venues where it's all ages, but there's an announcement that there's adult content going to happen, is, I think, challenging, to where it makes it better for when I perform at a club. Then everybody's there with the same mindset. There aren't any kids there. Like, they're there for comedy, and they're more open to more whimsical stuff. And I enjoy that more so. And the other thing I wanted to say is that some of these like venues where, like the Shamrock or whatever, or Solaris, sometimes, like last week, someone brought literally front center table a full-on infant in a carrier, sat him right on the table, and like the audience sees the child, and so the audience, I feel the audience, it pulls back because they're uncomfortable with the situation and what's being said in front of a child. And then as soon as the parents are like, you know what, I'm feeling not welcome here, I'm going to take my baby home on a 9 p.m. on a Monday, because I shouldn't be here right now drinking with my baby. So they leave, and then the audience is like, okay, now we can cut loose.
Thank God.
Yeah, the baby's gone. Let's get in it now.
Now we can do this.
Yeah.
That's a great observation on that, because I think you're right. It really does affect the audience. You know, just kind of thinking back at shows where people have brought their kids and how the audience was kind of reacting. You know, it's very similar to what you're talking about, how they get a little more reserved on what they want to laugh at or be involved with in the show because of that. And then as soon as they leave with them kids, they're just like, oh, finally, now we can let it all out.
Yeah, and it's risky too, because sometimes the comedians will be like, well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the baby. And it's a shot in the dark. Either the audience is like, yeah, let's talk about it, or they're like, no, I can't handle it, we're damaging the child. Like, we're making the parents feel bad. Yeah,
that reminds me, because you mentioned Russell Hicks earlier, and that reminds me, one time he was doing a show, I think it was one of Benji's shows, down in National City, and somebody brought a baby to the show, and of course it made sounds. And Russell, anybody that knows Russell Hicks knows he's amazing at crowd work. And it was funny because he's like, well, this is a career first for me, getting heckled by a baby. And he just like went on them for bringing the baby. It was pretty hilarious, but
that's great. Yeah.
It's a good old. That's where a crowd work can really come in handy there.
Yeah, dude, people, like, it's nice to be aware of the situation, talk about the like, just know what's going on, like what you're dealing with. Sometimes people will feel like if you go up and I respect it, if you have like a set and you do your thing and it's fine tuned, that's awesome. And then there's times where the audience is like, can we talk about the situation? Like, there's literally this happening right here. Can we talk about this?
Yeah.
Somebody please talk about the situation.
Well, and in a case like that, I think that's where you take advantage of doing the crowd work. Like, my biggest thing against, because I'm not a crowd work comic, and I know there are comics who are very good at it and very entertaining, but with all the stuff you see online, a lot of that stuff isn't great crowd work. And it's not, it's comics asking the same questions to the audience where they're trying to get something to happen, so it doesn't happen organically. And to me, good crowd work happens organically with exactly what you're saying. There's an elephant in the room, something's happening in the room, everybody knows it, but nobody's talking about it. That's the prime time to be doing crowd work. Taking advantage of that. Yeah.
I just saw a clip of Jason Collins talking about this situation that you're saying, that if you're going to do crowd work, don't just sit there and be like, so who are you? And where are you from? And you're just sitting there like, okay, yeah, it's been like a minute now. Are we going to get some laughs out of this? Like, get in and get out. Like, do your thing. And I appreciate that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm curious, going back. Oh, go ahead. Finish what you're.
I was just gonna say it's like the art of crowd work, or the art of bombing, and then the art of crowd work. Yeah.
And it is an art for sure. Well, I was just gonna say, going back to your story, because you were opening. How much time did you have to do on those shows, too?
At Pachenga?
Yeah. During your bombing story.
Yeah, I think I did 9. Okay, it was 9 minutes.
Well, that's kind of an odd opening set, but whatever.
We're talking 13 years ago, so I might be a little off.
Oh, for sure. I just remember. I'm just saying. Yeah, it just sounded 9 just as a. Usually it's 5 to 7. 8 to 10, whatever. But I was just curious because you said it was either new.
It was either because I go by, like, with the clubs, it's been like 7 and 9. Range, and they'll give you the 1 minute light at 8, but I now that I think about it, it probably was 7, but either way it seemed like forever. Like,
that's the thing about bombing.
It was probably only 4 minutes, but I was like, that was like 9 minutes.
It was an eternity.
Yeah,
I hear that. Well, now you're a more experienced comic, and so now, like, when you're up performing and you tell a joke that doesn't land, and you feel like you're probably starting to lose the audience, or going down that road that could lead to bombing, what goes through your mind in that moment, and how do you try to deviate to not lose the crowd?
Well, I have to say, I believe there's like 4 tiers to, like, there's 4 different levels of bombing. So, like, the first one is like, you'll do the joke and it's just dead silence. Like, it doesn't land, and you're like, okay, let's go to the next one. And so now you've moved to the next one, and the audience is like, they will start talking to one another, like, or if someone pulls out a phone and you're like, you can see the eyes
They're
changing.
bored.
Yeah, something's happening. Like, okay, I'm losing the confidence of the room. Stay in there, stay in the pocket, go to the third joke. You go into the third joke, and then now everyone's talking. Like the whole place is talking. They've completely given up on you. And then the biggest bomb is when somebody has to stand up for everybody and tell you that you effing suck. Yeah. So, like the atomic bomb. Yeah. Banned from it if you get and you get banned from a venue, or like someone comes to take, like I've had people try to take the microphone, like come up on stage, and like you're like, get off the stage, like they're like, no, you don't, like like when the audience is literally like trying to stop you from performing, or when they have to come outside and they're like, I need to talk with you, I need to have a chat with you, Christopher, and I'm like, go for it.
You should quit.
Yeah. Back then I did a show with there was Barley and Hops with Frank Castillo. He used to run an improv show there.
Yep.
Yeah. And one time I bombed, and I go out on the patio and we're all chatting, and 3 ladies come out and they're like, can we have a word with you? And I'm like, go for it. And they're like, in private. I'm like, no, you can do it right here in front of everybody. It's fine. I can handle it. And they're like, I just have to say, you're never going to, you have potential, but you're never going to make it, and you'll never perform at Pachenga Comedy Club. You just do not have what it takes to do it. I'm like, great. I was just there last week, but for sure. Thank you for your advice. And like, and they're like, yeah, we told him, and then they leave. But yeah, when you're in the element and you're bombing, like, one, don't show fear. Don't you enjoy, like, I've told this on stage before that sometimes, like, when you're performing and you're killing it, you get this huge dopamine dump, like endorphin high, and it's this rush and it feels wonderful, and you'll leave the show and you're just on this high and you feel so good. But sometimes when you bomb really hard, you still get that high, but it's like when you go home and your parents are waiting for you after a long party and you're hammered, and they're like, are you high right now? And you're like, and that horrible, like, you are high, but it's not a good feeling. Like, that's what it's like to bomb. So like, just stay in the pocket, ride it out. And there are times where you can recover from a bomb.
Oh, absolutely.
So never give up. Don't say, you know what, I'm going to call it early, get out. Some people do, and that's their choice. I say, try, like, ride the time. And when the light comes on, that's it. But like, you never know. You might be able to turn it around some way and stay, enjoy. Like, you signed up for it. It's public speaking.
Exactly. This is what you wanted to do. So
Right.
now you got to fulfill your end of the deal. And I think that's a good point, not showing fear and keeping to it. Because you're right. You can absolutely, especially, it really depends on how much time you're doing, like, as far as the set goes, Obviously, if you're doing like a 5 to 7 minute set, it could be harder to win a crowd, because it can be harder to win a crowd over, period, in that amount of time. But
oh yeah,
when you're doing a longer set, there's definitely a good chance that you can win them back, especially if you're in a situation where, if you have enough material and you know what you're doing and you can read the audience and you can tell, oh, I did this joke about insert any topic, they didn't like it, probably shouldn't do the next 2 minutes that's involves same topic. Let's switch it over to some other, let's try a different topic and different material, kind of thing.
Yeah, read the room, feel it out. Like, Kill Tony, what is that? A minute? You have a minute to do your thing, and like, there's a high probability that they're not going to be on board. I mean, you got to come out swinging. I haven't done Kill Tony yet, but I would love to. And then La Jolla Comedy Store, they have the 3 minutes. Like, you get on stage and you're already getting lit. Like, you're like, oh man, it goes by so fast.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I did Kill Tony one time years ago, and I didn't even get to the 1 minute. Like, I did a bunch of one-liners, and I was like, well, that felt like a 1 minute, and I stopped about 20 seconds short of a minute. And Tony was like, "You don't have one more joke that you can do?" Like you, because I was like, he was like, "You still like 20 seconds," and I was like, "I don't know that I have any jokes left, or that I could do in that amount of time." And he's like, "You just did like 5 jokes in 40 seconds. What do you mean you don't have one more?" And then I did one more, and then it crushed. It ended up doing very well. It was pretty
Cool.
funny, but I didn't even make it to the 1 minute.
That's awesome.
I
That's
was like, I'm
great.
so trying to be so professional. I'm not running this light.
Right. That would be terrible if like they were like telling you to stop. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, that would not be good. So
Yeah.
I
Well, and I
think
will
you did a
say
great job.
that was one of the most intimidating sets of my life, my career period, because I had no idea what the show was when I went. I went with some friends that were fans of the show. I had no idea what it was, and then go to the show, and then I see what it is. It's people doing 1 minute, and then them just roasting them to where they want to. Comics are probably thinking about quitting comedy, and I was like, I don't want no part of this.
Yeah. I came here
I
for a
don't
good
think
time.
Yeah, I don't want to be
Yeah.
sad and go home and cry and think about ending it all.
Right.
Like Jesus, because they
Yeah.
were brutal to some of those comics. That I
Uh-huh.
was just like,
Yeah.
wow, don't draw my name. And it's funny because I'll never forget that. I actually said that out loud to my friend. I was like, I don't know that I want to go up. And then they literally called my name, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
It's like, here we go.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, it was fun. But yeah, we're gonna start wrapping up. We talked about the bombing, so I like to go out more positive. Is there what in your career? What's been one of your funnest shows? It doesn't have to be the best show you've ever put on, but just one of the shows that is your favorite for whatever reason.
Yeah. Uh, my highest high, I would say, was I was probably like 2 years in, and I did a bringer show at the Ontario Improv with Big Mike, and
I
it was
remember
like,
Big Mike.
yeah,
R.I.P.
I did a few shows with him, but there was one show in particular. It was like myself. There was an Asian girl on the lineup, and then it was just the rest of the show was African American, and the place was sold out, 300 people, and it was like a Baptist church like performance, and the energy was off the charts. And I went in there and did my thing, and it was the first time where I actually was like, oh, this is what it's like to kill. Like they're eating out of my hand. Like I can when I had to take the amount of love when everyone's just like, oh my God, like I can't even breathe. Like they're like, like just losing their mind. And it's 300 people. And I could feel the energy. And I was like, oh, okay, just keep going. Like, that was a good feeling. And then another one was Aces Comedy Club with Bruce Jingles. We did a podcast in the green room after, and that was another one where Bruce Jingles was like, dude, MVP, Chris, great job. You were white hot. And I'm like, what does that mean? He's like a star when it's like it's like white, just burning. And that was a show again where the front audience was like, I can't breathe. Stop. I'm laughing too hard. And I was like running the jokes over them, and I could see them because I got the minute. So I was like, I got to wrap it up. But they're like, stop. I can't. I'm dying. And like, and that feels so good. And that's why, like, even when the times when the bombs happen, because they're going to happen, and it's inevitable. When it rains, it pours. Sometimes you'll be on a winning streak, and then you'll walk into a perfect scenario, and you think like, oh, I'm going to crush it tonight. And then for some odd reason, I don't know why, it's like magic or black magic or something, but it's like, no, you're going to bomb, and there's nothing about. And so when it happens, you just remember like, no, I've tasted blood before. Like I'm hooked. And like, I'm always chasing the dragon for that good, strong killer set. So yeah, it's a rush.
It is, absolutely.
And it's an adrenaline. Yeah. I used to be all into skydiving and cliff jumping, and And as soon as I started doing stand up, I was like, oh no, this is like the
Those don't
this
even
is-
compare.
yeah, it's physically safer, but mentally dangerous. So, and I'm hooked. I love it.
You're not wrong there. It can definitely be
Yeah.
mentally dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, we also have the Art of Bombing Get Pumped playlist. It doesn't have to be a song that gets you pumped for necessarily to do comedy, but just something that gets you pumped for whatever activity you're going to do. What's a song you would add to the playlist?
Diesel Boy Destroyer. Yeah,
Awesome.
it's pretty. Yeah, it's more. Yeah, just it's heavy drum and bass, but like I'll listen to it when I go to the gym or when I'm on my way to a show. Like it's instrumental, but it's heavy and like it gets me like. Like I'm, like
That's
for
exactly,
a big game
it
or
gets
something.
you pumped.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. Where can people find you? Where do you want to direct them? Plug in your
Okay.
pitch your
Yeah.
socials, all the jazz.
Yeah. You can find myself on just search Christopher Keith Tyler or CKT Comedy, like the @ CKT Comedy on Instagram or all social media. Also, I do a lot of my focus is on KAWmedy Entertainment, KAWmedy, like a crow, KAWmedy Entertainment on all social media, especially YouTube and Instagram. Instagram, I do a lot of reels there for promo videos and content. And then finally, Not So Funny podcast. It's KNOT, like knots on your back. I massage comedians, and my wife is a nutritionist, and she cooks while we interview the performer, and then we all eat together at the very end of the episode. So Not So Funny podcast. We're
That
doing season
sounds
2.
an amazing concept of a podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, tomorrow we're doing season 2, episode 1 with Rocky Osborne. He'll be on the show.
Fun. Tell
Yeah.
Rocky I said hello. And
I will.
And I'm glad to see him crush it because he's been killing it lately. He's doing
Yeah.
cruise ships and traveling
Yeah.
all over and
Yeah.
still rocking it. So yeah, tell him I said hello.
I will. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you can find Not So Funny on all platforms. Like we're re-releasing season 1 on our YouTube channel, Not So Funny podcast.
Perfect. That's fantastic. And of course, all this stuff will be in the show notes as well, so you can find that stuff down there if you're lazy and don't want to go search it. Otherwise, this has been great. Thank you so much, Christopher, for taking the time and doing the podcast.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
This has been a Tape Deck Media production. Thank you for listening.